The arrival expanded 1,000 words. The first thing the Clithians noticed was the scream. Not the terrified shriek of a trapped prey, not the staccato cry of a dying soldier. They had never heard anything like it. High above the jagged violet spires of KLYTH-9, a single human twisted through the low-gravity air with the elegance of a predator and the recklessness of a storm. Limbs flailing, thrusters blazing, she moved like a living projectile, a silhouette of terror and audacity against the alien sky. To the Clithians hovering below in their precision-formed formations, she looked less like a soldier and more like a demon conjured from the very void of their nightmares. Unpredictable, relentless, utterly uncontainable. Lieutenant Maravay laughed as she twisted midair, grappling across the tallest spires with her magnetic boots, the vibration of the low gravity amplifying every strike. "Gravity isn't optional," she muttered under her breath, voice crackling through her helmet comms. "Gravity is a toy. And I'm a child with a hammer." The Clithians, an insected empire with six-limbed soldiers, carapaces that shimmered like liquid metal, and a hive mind that could calculate 1,000 maneuvers in a fraction of a second, thought they had a perfect advantage. They had analyzed humanity for decades, patterns, weaknesses, cultural quirks, even the predictable chaos of our emotions. They had prepared for warriors, not children with thruster boots and improvisational genius. Below her, Clithian drones adjusted in perfect unison, an army of black and silver precision instruments. They calculated trajectories, vectors, probabilities. 1, 2, 3, she shattered their calculations with a sideways kick, sending a drone spinning into the side of a tower. Explosions flared in the low gravity like firework storms, the shards of metal floating in chaotic arcs, reflecting the dying light of KLYTH-9's twin suns. "Lieutenant Vey, this is HQ. You are to extract immediately. Do not, repeat, do not engage the Hive Council's defenses alone," the voice barked, heavy with concern. Mara grinned, letting herself drop from the top of a collapsing spire, twisting midair, thrusters blazing. "Relax, Commander," she said over the comm, voice carrying a mixture of humor and menace. "I am the engagement." The low gravity of KLYTH-9 turned every movement into an opportunity for destruction. Mara vaulted from one jagged outcrop to another, sending Clithian sensors into a frenzy. Every plasma cannon they fired was answered not with retreat but with audacious counterattack. She floated sideways, spun, and kicked the nearest drone's energy core, setting off a chain reaction of miniature explosions that resembled a meteor shower of debris. For the Clithians, the spectacle was horrifying. Their hive mind, used to order and predictability, began to fracture under the chaos of one human cadet. Calculations screamed error after error. This should not be possible. Mara's visor flickered with incoming data, trajectory, velocity, structural weaknesses. She ignored half of it. Humans weren't machines. Humans thrived in chaos. She used chaos. She turned the Clithians' precision against them. When one drone aimed for her side, she twisted midair, grabbing a loose metal shard and hurling it with exacting violence. The shard pierced 3 drones before ricocheting into the side of a control tower, toppling it like a child's domino. The sky above KLYTH-9 was a surreal war zone, twisting human acrobatics, floating debris, and the faint hum of alien technology straining against the impossible. Mara leaped, spun, and landed on a narrow ledge, crouched low, fists clenched. Her boots burned the surface, leaving tiny scorch marks where physics itself seemed to bend in submission to human audacity. She allowed herself a moment to laugh, a pure, unrestrained laugh that echoed across the valleys, bouncing off jagged cliffs and metallic towers. The Clithians had never encountered anything like it. They had predicted humans to be stubborn, clever, unpredictable, but never this. A single cadet, unarmored, alone, had just reduced the operational effectiveness of half a planetary defense grid. And then came the first whisper of panic. The Hive Council appeared in holographic form on the largest control spire, their segmented faces rippling in shock and disbelief. They had never calculated this. They had algorithms for everything, contingencies for everything, but not a single scenario where a lone human could wreak such havoc with nothing but thrusters, ingenuity, and sheer bloody-minded joy. Mara crouched, scanning the holographic display of enemy positions. Every calculation the aliens had made screamed impossible, yet here she was, exploiting their blind spots, their over-reliance on order. She whispered to herself, "Rules are just suggestions for those who fear them." A Clithian drone aimed directly at her, plasma cannons charged to maximum. Mara's eyes narrowed. She leapt from the spire, spinning midair, firing a microgrenade into the air. In low gravity, the explosion became a rotating cyclone of metal and fire, tearing apart drone after drone. For every Clithian tactic, she found a counter. For every expectation, a trap. The alien screams were guttural, a mixture of rage and incomprehension. Their hive minds struggled to adapt. Their perfect formations fell apart. Every drone that had aimed for her was now a flaming projectile, colliding with another or plummeting into the jagged surface below. Mara landed on a broken energy conduit, fists smoking from the residual heat. She looked up at the crumpled spires and said simply, "You're welcome." And then, as if on instinct, she leapt again, this time toward the command hub, where the Hive Council orchestrated planetary defenses. In the low gravity, she flew like a demon unleashed, a streak of human defiance and calculated madness, twisting through the alien sky with no hesitation, no fear, only joy in the absurdity of it all. For the Clithians, the message was terrifyingly clear: they had underestimated humanity. They had assumed rules, predictability, obedience to patterns. Instead, they were faced with something impossible: a single human cadet capable of bending their structured world into chaos, leaving nothing but carnage and awe in her wake. Mara's laughter echoed as she closed the distance to the command hub, the final spire of this first assault. The Hive Council tried to respond, to summon reinforcements, to recalculate their strategy. But the low gravity, her thrusters, and her ingenuity combined into something no algorithm could ever predict. And she? She had only just begun. The aliens did not yet know it, but they were witnessing the birth of a legend, the human who could defy gravity, defy logic, and make an entire species question the meaning of superiority. And Mara Vey, grinning beneath her visor, whispered to the empty sky, "Let's see how much fear one human can teach them." Chaos Theory expanded 1,000 words. Mara's boots burned against the final spire like molten iron kissing ice. She crouched for a moment, letting the low gravity stretch her limbs like elastic, then leapt. Each movement was deliberate chaos, a symphony of destruction only a human could conduct. The Hive Council's command hub rose before her, a towering lattice of black metal and energy conduits, humming with alien power and arrogance. It was designed to withstand orbital bombardment, to neutralize entire planetary invasions. And it was about to meet a cadet armed with nothing but thrusters, a magnetic grappling suit, and a relentless imagination. "Lieutenant Vey," her commander's voice crackled in her comms, tense and cautious. "You are engaging a Tier 1 Hive Council command hub. Extraction is mandatory, do not compromise." Mara laughed, cutting off the transmission. "Mandatory, huh? That's cute. Humans don't do mandatory. We make the rules." The first drones swarmed her from the sides, plasma cannons flashing like angry fireflies. She twisted midair, firing a microgrenade into the closest cluster. In low gravity, it floated like a tiny moon before detonating, sending shards of metal and burning circuitry spinning through the alien air like lethal confetti. A Clithian screamed, though Mara could barely register the sound over the thrum of her thrusters. She landed on a narrow ledge halfway up the hub, boots clanging against metal, shrapnel bouncing around her like a storm. Every Clithian move was met with audacity. A drone dove at her from above, she kicked it into the side of the hub, sending it into a chain reaction of collisions. Explosions rippled outward, illuminating the hub in flickering bursts of orange and violet. Her visor tracked enemy energy flows. Shields, weapons, communication arrays, all interconnected, all brittle. Mara smiled. "Brittle," she muttered. "Very brittle. Then came the first real challenge, the Hive Council's elite guards. Six-limbed juggernauts, armor thicker than her transport hull, plasma glaives humming with lethal intent. They moved in perfect synchronicity, anticipating human fallibility. Mara knew their tricks. She had studied their movement patterns before stepping onto KLYTH-9. But predictions weren't reality. Humans thrived in reality, not simulations. She spun midair, thrusters screaming, and slammed one guard with a magnetic grapple, flipping it into another. Sparks flew as they collided. She kicked, punched, and vaulted off broken drones, each strike precise yet chaotic, a ballet of violence that defied every expectation. The guards were relentless, but Mara was relentlesser. From behind, a plasma turret lined up her trajectory. Mara didn't dodge, she used it. Leaping sideways, she fired a timed EMP micropod into the turret's wiring. The explosion ricocheted, taking out 2 guards, 2 drones, and half a control conduit. Mara landed with a flourish, breathing hard, adrenaline painting her face. The Hive Council's voice hissed in her calm channels, multiple projections flaring simultaneously, their segmented mandibles quivering with panic. Cease! Cease this madness! You cannot survive this assault! Mara tilted her head. Oh, I can survive, she said, voice dripping with humor and menace. The question is, can you? She activated a secondary sequence in her suit's AI. Micro-drones hidden in her transport fleet activated, streaming through the hub's ventilation and maintenance conduits. They sabotaged power lines, misdirected communications, and rewrote targeting algorithms. What had been a fortress of lethal precision became a maze of confusion. Clithian weapons began targeting one another, shields flickered, and drones collided midair, screaming and exploding like fireworks. The Hive Council tried to respond, their calculations racing through trillions of potential solutions, but Mara's improvisation defied them. Every human instinct, every reckless decision, every tiny twist of fate worked in her favor. She flipped through the air, thrusters propelling her like a missile, and landed atop the central energy node, a sphere of glowing blue energy surrounded by a lattice of conduits. She crouched, fists on the ground. You think you're smart. You think in patterns. You assume. Mara reached out, fingers brushing the energy node. It pulsed against her suit, thrumming with raw alien power. She smiled. Assume this. With a twist of her wrist, the micro-drones overloaded the node's circuits. Sparks cascaded in spirals, lights flickered, and the hub screamed in the language of alien technology, alarms, firestorms, and electrical feedback exploding simultaneously. Mara vaulted off the node just as it detonated, sending waves of plasma and debris outward. For a moment, the sky turned white, then violet, then black as systems collapsed in cascading failure. The Clithians didn't panic. They didn't know how to panic, but confusion and disbelief spread through their hive mind like a virus. Algorithms that should have maintained control were now useless, overridden by human chaos. They were facing an organism, a single mind, that refused to conform to expectation, that thrived in the unpredictable. Mara landed on a jagged tower fragment, boots burning, chest heaving, visor flickering with data. Below her, the shattered hub's energy node leaked fire and sparks into the sky. Drones and guards were reduced to piles of metal. The Hive Council's projections trembled, shifting violently in digital panic. A voice hissed through the remaining comm channels, sharp and acidic, almost like teeth scraping stone. One human cannot. Mara smiled, pointing toward the last remaining active drone. Watch closely, she said. Then she launched herself at the drone, twisting like a whirlwind, kicking it into the control hub's unstable energy conduit. It detonated in a shockwave of plasma that rocked the nearby spires. The hub shuddered. The Hive Council's defenses collapsed entirely. For the first time in recorded Clithian history, a single human had crippled a command hub designed to withstand orbital bombardment and planetary invasions. Their greatest fortress, the jewel of KLYTH-9, was now a smoldering ruin. Mara crouched atop a spire, looking down at the destruction, wind whipping her hair. Her visor displayed energy readings, structural integrity, and tactical outcomes, all irrelevant. Numbers couldn't measure exhilaration. Calculations couldn't measure joy. The Hive Council's mistake was believing victory came from logic. Humans proved it came from audacity, improvisation, and fearlessness. She whispered to herself, eyes gleaming. One human. One cadet. One flying demon. Below, the Clithians scrambled, hives in disarray. Their perfect formations had collapsed under a single human's ingenuity. Mara's laugh echoed across the valleys, a sound both terrifying and exhilarating. They didn't yet know it, but she had just rewritten their understanding of power. And Mara Vey, grinning beneath her visor, whispered to the empty sky. Let's see how much fear one human can teach them. The Devil's Negotiation expanded 1,000 words. The shattered spires of KLYTH-9 glowed under the twin suns, jagged silhouettes of destruction rising like blackened teeth. Mara hovered above them, thrusters humming, surveying the chaos she had wrought. Every drone, every guard, every automated turret had either exploded, crashed, or been turned against its own. And still, the Hive Council remained, massive, imposing, and infuriated, visible in holographic form on the central command spire. Their segmented mandibles twitched with rage, and their six-limbed hands clawed at invisible instruments in midair. You think this is victory, human? One projection hissed, the voice a sharp rasp of acid and steel. You cannot survive. You cannot comprehend our will. You are nothing. Mara tilted her head, her eyes glinting with amusement beneath her visor. Comprehend your will? Oh, I get it perfectly, she said. It's rigid, predictable, polite. You assume control. You calculate. You order. Her boots burned against a broken conduit as she landed lightly, crouched like a cat preparing to strike. You just forgot one thing. Humans don't obey. We improvise. The Hive Council's projections flickered with tension. They had fought wars across galaxies, exterminated countless species, yet they had never dealt with this, a single human capable of manipulating physics, technology, and chaos itself. Their algorithms had predicted bravery, cunning, even desperation, but nothing prepared them for audacity. Mara raised a hand and activated a sequence in her suit's AI. Microdrones, dormant until now, swarmed through the ventilation and maintenance conduits of the hub. Lights flickered, energy readings wavered, and the Council's projected images jittered violently. Mara could almost hear the panic crawling through their hive mind. Every weapon system, every shield matrix, every communications array began to misfire, targeting one another, misaligning, collapsing under the weight of her improvisation. The Hive Council screeched in unison, a sound like grinding stone, shaking the very air. You will die. Your species will be obliterated. Mara smirked. Obliteration? You think that scares me? She leapt from the conduit, spinning through the low gravity, thrusters flaring, and slammed into the largest projection with a magnetic grapple. Sparks showered the hologram as her impact reverberated across the hub. She twisted midair, firing a micro-grenade at the core, and detonated it precisely to cascade through the remaining projections. The Hive Council's hive mind fractured. Systems failed. The shields around the central spire flickered, then collapsed entirely. Mara landed, chest heaving, atop the hub's main lattice. She could see them now, the alien aristocracy, digital ghosts of their former arrogance, flailing in impotent panic. You think you are gods, she said, voice carrying across the battlefield. But even gods can bleed. From the debris, a single elite guard tried to charge her. Mara flipped backward, thrusters flaring, and sent the creature tumbling into the central energy conduit. Sparks erupted, fire and plasma consuming the lattice, a mini-nova contained within the low gravity. The Clithians screamed, not fear, exactly, but confusion, the sensation of a universe bending in ways they couldn't calculate. Mara crouched, surveying the destruction. She could hear it, the low, guttural buzzing of panicked drones, the crackle of failing communications, the jittering of a fractured hive mind. And she realized something extraordinary. she didn't have to kill them all. She didn't have to conquer an empire. All she had to do was break them, mentally, strategically, emotionally. Humans had a gift the Clithians could never match: unpredictability. The Queen appeared as a final hologram, massive and trembling with rage. "Stop this!" she demanded. "You are nothing! One human cannot destroy all of this!" Mara crouched low, boots smoldering, visor tracking every energy flow. "One human can," she said, voice low and dangerous. "One human can teach an empire humility. One human can make the strongest species in this quadrant rethink everything they thought they knew." She activated another AI command, sending a coordinated swarm of microdrones directly into the Queen's projection nodes. The holographic figure shuddered violently, segments flickering, mandibles quivering. Systems misfired, defenses collapsed, and drones fell into each other, a cascading failure of alien engineering. The Queen screeched, the sound splitting the air into shards of panic. Mara laughed, a full, free laugh that carried across the shattered landscape. "You see? Chaos is art. Fear is a tool. You think in equations, I think in possibilities. I don't need numbers, I am the calculation." The Hive Council scrambled, trying to regain control, but it was too late. The energy core of the hub pulsed dangerously close to self-destruction. Mara looked up, her grin widening. "Guess it's time for the final lesson." She leapt, thrusters screaming, and slammed her boots onto the central core's lattice. Fingers brushing the glowing energy, she sent the final set of microdrones spiraling through the conduits, creating a chain reaction of system failures. Alarms screamed, plasma arcs flew like lightning, and the central hub became a storm of destruction. Drones collided midair, guards tumbled from collapsed platforms, and the Queen's holographic form shattered into 1,000 flickering shards. Mara landed lightly, crouched atop a broken spire, chest heaving, face streaked with sweat and grime, a single figure of calm amid the chaos. The sky above KLYTH-9 was painted with smoke, fire, and shattered metal, the battlefield of a war they had never anticipated. Below, the surviving drones and soldiers paused. They didn't flee, they didn't know how. They had been taught to follow, to obey, to calculate, to conquer. They had never been taught to think. They had never faced someone like Mara Vey, someone who embodied the perfect blend of audacity, improvisation, and sheer human madness. The Queen's voice hissed one last time, fragmented, desperate. "This cannot be one human." Mara tilted her head, grinning beneath her visor. "Oh, it can. And it is." Across the shattered command hub, across the ruined spires and flaming drones, Mara raised her fists to the alien sky. She didn't just fight. She didn't just survive. She had rewritten the rules of engagement. She had turned their own empire against itself. She had become a nightmare for a species that prided itself on perfection, precision, and control. In that moment, Mara understood something vital. Humans weren't just soldiers. Humans were a force of nature. Unpredictable, terrifying, impossible to calculate. A single human could topple empires, devastate fleets, and leave alien aristocracies questioning every assumption they had ever made. She laughed again, the sound carrying across the battlefield, echoing against the jagged ruins of KLYTH-9. "One human," she whispered. "One cadet. One flying demon." And somewhere in the shattered depths of the Hive Council's shattered command network, their drones buzzed, systems misfired, and a single, terrifying truth spread like wildfire: humanity had arrived. And it was nothing like they had expected. Humanity's mark, expanded 1,000 words. The sky over KLYTH-9 had turned from violet to a bruised, smoky gray, streaked with fire and molten metal. Jagged towers leaned like wounded beasts, their energy conduits sparking and dying in slow, writhing arcs. From above, Mara Vey hovered lightly, thrusters barely murmuring, surveying the wreckage with a calm satisfaction only a human could muster amid alien chaos. Every explosion, Every collapse, every failed drone and fractured shield had been orchestrated in a symphony of improvisation that no algorithm, no hive mind, no empire could anticipate. She descended toward the transport orbiting above the planet, her boots igniting tiny sparks as they made contact with the deck. The rest of her squad erupted in stunned applause, but not a single one of them had the words to describe what they had just witnessed. A single cadet, one human, had dismantled a command hub built to withstand orbital bombardment, shattered the Hive Council's elite guard, and turned an entire species' most sophisticated defense network against itself. Lieutenant Vey, her commander finally said, voice trembling, still processing the impossible. The Clithians, they'll never forget. Mara interrupted, smirking beneath her helmet as she removed it, letting her blonde hair fall in a messy cascade around her face. Sweat and soot streaked her cheeks. Her eyes glittered with the thrill of unrestrained chaos. They'll remember what humans do when you underestimate us. They'll tell stories of the flying demon. And the best part? They won't even know what hit them. The squad laughed, nervous but exhilarated. Mara dropped onto a deck chair, boots up, breathing easy for the first time in hours. Below, HFY smoldered, a planet transformed by the ingenuity and audacity of a single human. The Hive Council's drones had withdrawn, leaving behind a stunned, fractured empire. Their calculations, so precise and cold, had failed spectacularly. They had been blind to the one variable they could not predict, Mara Vey. Somewhere in the planet's shattered communication network, the Queen whispered to the remaining generals, her segmented mandibles trembling. One human, she is a storm, a demon, we cannot. Mara's laugh carried faintly through orbit, even in the broken transmission channels. Storm? Demon? Perfect. Call me that. I like it. She stood on the observation deck, looking down at the alien city, smoke curling like the tendrils of a living thing. Humanity had arrived on HFY, and in doing so, had left an indelible mark. Not conquest. Not domination. Not surrender. Fear. Respect. And most importantly, uncertainty. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were dangerous. Humans were alive in ways the Clithians could not comprehend. Her comms crackled. Lieutenant Vey, mission report? She grinned, voice low, carrying the weight of victory and menace alike. Mission accomplished. Tell HQ, the flying demon wants a bigger sandbox next time. Even the AI aboard her transport seemed to shiver at her audacity. Mara had not just won a battle. She had rewritten the narrative of human-alien interaction in this quadrant. She had demonstrated that humans didn't play by the rules, they made the rules. They thrived in chaos, relished danger, and turned even the most hopeless scenario into opportunity. As the transport lifted off, breaking orbit with the ease of a predator, Mara's gaze lingered on the planet below. HFY would heal eventually, but the memory of that day would linger forever in the hive mind of the Clithians. Their soldiers would whisper about the flying demon. Their council would debate endlessly how a single human cadet had dismantled their strongest defenses. And every future encounter would be colored by fear and respect. For Mara, the mission had been exhilarating, but she felt no arrogance. Humans were dangerous, yes, but they were also fallible. Today had been perfect. Tomorrow? Tomorrow, she hoped, would be even better. A transmission came through from orbiting HQ. Lieutenant Vey, status? She leaned back in her chair, helmet in her lap, a smirk playing across her face. Status? Chaos achieved. Morale boosted. Alien arrogance, thoroughly punished. And by the way, they still think we're fragile. Cute, isn't it? Below, the Clithian drones began moving again, but slower, cautious, uncertain. Their systems hummed with doubt. Their hive mind was fractured, shaken to the core. They had encountered the impossible and survived, but they would never underestimate humans again. Mara's eyes narrowed as she considered that. Humanity wasn't here to negotiate, wasn't here to bargain. Humanity was here to endure, to adapt, and when necessary, to dominate through creativity, audacity, and sheer determination. One cadet, one small figure, had proven that lesson more effectively than an entire fleet or a century of military strategy. She stood on the observation deck, watching the smoldering horizon of KLYTH-9. Smoke rose from shattered spires, sparks drifted through the low-gravity atmosphere, and the twin suns reflected off twisted metal like shards of broken dreams. Mara whispered to the empty sky. Humans aren't just survivors. We're storms. We're demons. We're inevitable. Her calm crackled again. Lieutenant HQ is requesting debrief. Mara laughed, cutting it off. Debrief? Ha! Tell them, one human. One cadet. One flying demon. That's the debrief. The transport shuddered as it left orbit, engines flaring, shadows of jagged spires falling behind them. Mara looked at her squad, young faces illuminated by the glow of instrumentation, eyes wide with awe and fear. You see that? She asked. That's a taste of what humans are capable of. Remember it. Live it. And if anyone ever underestimates us again, they'll get the same lesson. Below, KLYTH-9 burned in quiet fury. The Hive Council would rebuild, but the impression was indelible. The legend of the flying demon, of one human capable of toppling a planetary defense hub, would echo across their empire for generations. A single cadet had done what no fleet, no warship, no army could have done: instill fear, uncertainty, and respect in the heart of a galaxy-spanning species. Mara leaned back in her chair, visor reflecting the faint glow of distant stars. Humanity has arrived, she murmured. And we're not here to negotiate. We're here to endure, to innovate, and if necessary, to teach lessons in ways no one will ever forget. She laughed, low and deliberate, as the transport accelerated into the stars, leaving behind the smoldering ruins of KLYTH-9 and the shattered pride of an empire that had underestimated humans at their peril. And somewhere in the broken communication grids below, the Queen's fragmented voice whispered through fractured channels. One human is a demon. Mara smiled beneath her visor. Damn right. And in that moment, humanity left its mark, not just on KLYTH-9, not just on a single empire, but across the universe. A mark of ingenuity, audacity, and chaos. A reminder that humans did not ask permission. Humans did not calculate the odds. Humans created legends. And some legends, like the flying demon, were impossible to forget.